So now I'm under the sink. Okay, I've got my pliers. And let's see if I can kind of work this off a little bit. The good news, if I break it, I already planned on replacing it. But hopefully I can just use the pliers enough to kind of give me leverage. That is not budging. I'm going to try the other side. There's two of them here. I think I'm turning it the wrong. I got the other one to turn a little bit. Maybe I'm turning it the wrong way. The other one turns, even though you can't see it. I'm able to turn the other one. In fact, it's probably going to start dripping water in a moment because I can feel that. Let's see what happens. Interesting. It actually shut off the water, which gives me the impression that one of these valves probably wasn't. I think I may have identified my problem with this valve. That it's given what I'm experiencing, I think what I'm going to do is proceed with what I had planned. I already wanted to replace the valves anyways, so I'm going to replace both valves. There's one for the hot water, one for the cold water, which means that I've got this is the water line that's running up to the faucet. So I'll need to disconnect the water line, but more importantly, I need to turn off the main water line that's coming to this vanity. Now, whenever you're turning off water, what I've learned, again, I'm on the first floor. So the trick is to turn on your upstairs water lines, your upstairs valves, like your bathroom faucets, and I also turn on this faucet. Actually, I turn on all the faucets. Maybe that's the best way to put it. That way, the water will drain out of the system so that when I take off this valve, even though there may be some water dripping, there won't be excessive water because it has already exited the system, because at the time I shut it off, I had all the faucets open. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then I'll come back. Okay, my next task is first to remove the water line and then to remove this valve. Or I guess a better term would be first is to disconnect the water line. By the way, while I'm doing this, I want to point out that when I turn off the water, if you recall, I mentioned that I opened up all of the valves. I turned on the water in the bathtub. I turned on the water in the shower in the other bathroom. I turned on the faucets upstairs in the bathrooms, and then downstairs the kitchen sink, and then this faucet. By doing that, the water that's upstairs brings in air since no more water is coming up, and then the water starts to go downward to drain. Since it can't pull any more water up, whatever water is in the system upstairs will eventually drain downstairs to the sinks that are open downstairs. So the water was still trickling for a while, so I waited until after all of the water stopped draining from downstairs. Then I knew that the bulk of the water is out. There still should be or will be some residue, and I'm expecting there is some water that will be still in the line, but not nearly as much if I hadn't turned on all of the water faucets and drains and opened up all of those, because it would have had water still in them. So I'm glad I opened up everything, and now the water is out. Let me finish taking this off. Remember, there's two. I can't seem to get my camera over. I may show you. In fact, water's dripping out now, which I expected. But I'm gonna. There it is. Okay. That's one of the water lines, and now I got water dripping. And now it's finished draining. Now I'm going to remove the I'm going to remove the valve. So I see an injury about to happen, so I'm going to go get some gloves so that I don't scratch my hands. Gloves. And I've added a pipe wrenches. I was trying to use this on one of the connections, and it wasn't working. So I'm now using a small and a large pipe wrench, and I think that is going to give me the leverage I need. Yeah, that did it. Okay. There was all indication that this was frozen shut, and somehow or another it had gotten tight. So what I'm going to do I have replaced valves in my other bathrooms, and what there is this part, and that's what's in here now. But here's the problem. And it's not really a problem, but normally what would happen is this part would slide on here, and then this ring would then go on afterwards. Well, so as not to create a big problem for myself, the old valve has this part, this nut. There's nothing wrong with it, and it also has this other piece. So I'm going to utilize that other piece, because normally what would happen is once that's on, then I would twist this valve onto this piece. So I'm going to utilize what's already there. And again, I have replaced other valves in my other two bathrooms. And I've been able to do that because the nut that's already still in place, it would be a lot of work to remove that And since it's not the nut itself, it's actually the valve that seems to be locked and no longer working. So I'm going to use that. Before I put that on, I'm going to put some Teflon tape on these threads. And in doing so and putting the Teflon tape on, let's see here. So can I show you what I'm doing? I always have trouble remembering because you want the Teflon tape when you wrap it, whatever direction you're turning this, you want the Teflon tape to be in such a way that it turns in the same direction. Let's see if I can remember this. Okay. I always have trouble. I think this is the direction. Yes. Teflon tape has to go in the direction that you're going to be twisting this on. If you don't, it will twist off. So you got to make sure the Teflon tape, I think that, yeah, that does it. Now mind you, I've got another valve to do. This one happens to be the hot water valve. Okay, I think I got enough on there. And now I'm going to take off this. There's a nut that comes with it, but I'm going to take that off because the water line already has a built-in nut that replaces this. Just to be certain, I'm going to use the water line to make sure I'm right. You might not have been able to see clearly what I was trying to describe when I was removing the old water valve and replacing a new water valve. So I thought I'd provide a little more detail here as to what I was trying to say earlier. Now, this is the old valve that I got, but this is the part that I did not use of a new valve. So it comes with a nut and it comes with what they call a compression ring. And so pretend like this is the pipe coming out of the wall. And if it's coming out of the wall, then let's say the old nut from the old washer, the old valve was here, and then this compression ring was also in here. Now, over time, what happens is, this is the old one, and over time, when you're tightening this, that compression ring that's here, this ring that's here, is also wedging itself against the valve and causing a very tight water seal. So because of that, if you were to if I had replaced the old part, I would have had to cut this. So let's say, for instance, which really wasn't my issue, but let's say you didn't have a lot of this pipe coming out of the wall and you had to cut this. Now you're going to have trouble trying to put this new piece onto the existing pipe. So because this was not damaged and it was still usable, it made sense. Why not, instead of going to all that trouble, which is what the point I was trying to make when I was replacing it, why not just use the old nut and compression ring that's there, since it was not damaged, it was actually the valve. And then that way you put that on and you tighten it back on and you're okay. Similarly, the top half, that leads to the water line, that comes from the water line. There was also this part, very similar to what went into the pipe, that came with the new valve. It also had that compression ring that I mentioned. However, most water lines now, they already come with a built-in nut and a water-tightened seal. So all you have to do with the new, don't use the nut that came with it, use the water line, and the water line actually has that built in. Saves you a little time and a little headache, more so the pipe that's coming out of the wall, because sometimes you just don't have that extra length, you can't afford to cut it off. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, I've got the other valve taken off, and it's unfortunate. I should have had the video playing because there was a lot of water that was still in the pipe. And when I loosen the connections, it's all spilled out. So I have quite a mess underneath my sink, but I've cleared it up now. So now the next thing to do, or final thing to do, because I already did it on the other side, which you didn't see, is just to connect the water line back to the valve. Okay, the moment of truth, but before I do, I just want to put a towel and wipe around the connections because I want to see if there are any leaks. And because water squirted out, I don't want to panic by seeing water. If I never wiped it all off, well, there's clearly going to be water. So here's the moment of truth. The water's back on. It's time to open up the valves. That's the scary part, but it's something that has to be done. Okay, that's one. And before I turn on the faucet, I want the pressure to build up in the water lines because I want to see if there's any leaks. Okay, so far so good. Now this still may not solve my problem, but we'll find out because I'm about to turn the water on. So let me move my camera so you can see what's going on. Here we go, the moment of truth. Didn't solve my problem. The next step is to buy a new faucet. So I could have done the other in reverse. I could have turned the water off, replaced the faucet, and then if the faucet still did not run enough water, I could replace the valve. So my next step is to replace the faucet.